All right, everyone. When you hear that howling sound, you know it is the wolf pack. What is going on? I am Rob, the sports card therapist. I'm here with Ken from Sports Card Lessons. Ken, Big Ken, the teacher, the wolf pack. This is episode 10 of the wolf pack, man. How are you doing?
Man, I am doing well, Rob. How you doing?
Oh, man, I'm
Episode
doing
episode 10.
episode 10, man. Episode 10. And,
Yeah.
it does feel kind of cool, like starting something like from the ground up again, because you're on episode, what, 76?
78.
You're on episode 78. I'm on episode 162, so to think that like we're all in this together, starting something from the ground up,
Yeah.
you, me, Craig, Carmine, Tony,
Yeah.
Oz, and
It's like having
Dave.
another child, right?
It is, man, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a big week for us. We're doing the Springfield show. So we're doing the Springfield show on Saturday, April 8th from 9 to 5 p.m. in Springfield at the Mass Mutual Center. And then from 6 to 7, we're doing the hobby talk, the hobby panel discussion that I am hosting that you are going
Yeah.
to be a part of. So you're actually going to be a panel member on this hobby discussion at the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Basketball Hall of Fame. And for those of you who missed it last time, Rob knocked it out of the park. I know that's a baseball thing. I don't know, what should I say? You hit a half court, with basketball, but I mean
I
you
dunked
you
from the free throw line.
yeah, you crushed it last time. And
Thank you, man.
I think this one, because everyone talked about the last one, I think this one's going to be just off the hook. I think it's going to be, you're turning people away at the door. I bet, when it comes to that panel and to come sit in. I really do. I just think it's going to be well attended.
Yeah, and I would agree. I would agree. I think it's going to be phenomenal. I'm just really looking forward to it, man. Really looking forward to it. So I'm curious. So Wolfpack episode 10. Um, where like what are the last few things that you've bought? Because I know we're going to be talking about this on our podcast itself this week. About how we kind of started out in the same lanes and now we've kind of splintered off into different lanes and stuff. Because the Wolfpack is so it's really so diverse, right? I mean, I'm thinking about Carmine, who just loves to collect these incredible patches, incredible game used patches. He loves Flawless. I'm thinking about Craig, who collects soccer. He just picked up a Roberto Clemente card. Anything New York Knicks, he loves. Tony, who is all about Randall Cunningham, Donovan McNabb, the Eagles. He's Mr. Roberto Clemente. And then you have Oz, who is all about Stranger Things, Allen Iverson, Michael Jackson, Dave, who is strictly a dealer, does not collect, does not have a PC, just strictly deals in anything that's liquid that he can get
Yeah.
his hands on, which is kind of an oxymoron, right? Because you can't really get your hands on liquid things. So like, and people know me as the vintage guy, and I don't know. I think people kind of know you as like the quarterback guy and the Mike Tyson guy, but I
Yeah.
know Tony is also a Mike Tyson guy. So what lane are you really like driving toward?
Well, right now my lane is driving right to National. I have an express lane that's going right to National. So, and I've been talking about this. The cards that I'm acquiring now are just being put away. They're strictly for National. I'm getting them at really good prices on all different platforms. A lot of XRCs. I really wanted to try to pick up RPAs, and the RPA prices really didn't drop down as much as I thought. But there's a lot of other cards. I love these XRCs. I've picked up probably, 12 or 14 XRC PSA 10s. Those are all for, just all going to National, and they're all quarterbacks or,
Yeah.
good players. Recently I picked up this this rookie Patrick Mahomes. It's the rated rookie optic. It's numbered to 149. So this was just a nice card that came
Is that the
along.
one that you stole from DJ Sports Card 86?
Yeah, yeah. If you listen to last week's podcast, I overpaid a bit on it, but you know, um, I don't mind if I've got some cards that just aren't moving, and I can throw them in and get a deal done because I just think that card. I'm a Chiefs guy, I'm a Mahomes guy, so if I never move that card, I'll be happy to leave it right here in my case.
Yeah.
I picked up at the beginning of the year, I picked up a bunch of hockey, and people are excited. I get messages, people come to the shows. Um, and I'm going to stay in the hockey lane, but I want to
Are
stay in the
you?
goat. I want to stay in the goat lane. I don't want to stay in the prospecting lane. So, over my next few shows between, we have Springfield and Hofstra, and then I'm in Toronto, I'm hoping to move, the younger young guns, the rookie young guns and the guys that have been around just a couple of years, and maybe move that more into, some Ovechkin and Gretzky and Lemieux, things like that. Just some more, and I enjoy the hockey lane. I can stay and talk hockey with anybody all day long because I love hockey. But yeah, I mean, to me, people want to know what I do, but I love the Tysons, right? I have music cards now. I've picked up a bunch of music cards that I've gotten graded, so I'm dabbling a little bit in that lane to see how well that goes at the shows. Just trying to throw things out there, see what works.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love how it's for me there's such a like a blurred line and with like what I PC and what I bring to shows, like I know that Craig, New York City Sports Cards, he doesn't bring any of his PC to shows ever. And I always bring my PC with me because my PC really consists of like 12 high-end cards, but I bring those with me, A, to draw attention, B, as conversation starters, and C, because you never know what could be there, what could be available when someone walks up to your table, or if another dealer's walking around and like, "Ooh, I like that card. You know what? Come over to my table, see if I have anything you'd be interested in." I mean, how many times have you said that to another dealer, or how many times has another dealer said that to you? Like, "Oh, I like that card, Ken. Why don't I'm set up over there in the back corner? Why don't you come over to my table?" And it's like,
Yeah.
so for that reason and that reason, really, like that's why I always bring my stuff with me. But
Mm,
it's getting harder and harder to set up at shows because you know I I love the cards and I really don't want to move them
mm,
and I don't think really buy very much with the intention of flipping. Most of the stuff I buy is stuff that hits me in the feels.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, I buy more stuff that I think that may hit me in the fields a little, but that I think I may be able to move at shows too. That because I go to so many shows and I set up at so many shows, I kind of know what's popular, But when I look at you and I look at your collecting, and even these cards right behind you, the way I view your collecting is it's a goats of every sport,
Yeah.
right? Of
Yep.
hockey, of boxing, of basketball, of baseball, right? And this is your lane. This is a great lane. It's just that there's only some of these cards you have right behind you. There's only so many of those George Mikan cards, right? There's only so many of those Cassius Clay cards. They're the Dr. J and even like a hand signed Gretzky card. Those are all really kind of rare cards, right? So for me, learning a little bit from what you're doing and learning just experience at shows is just having these low pop or rare cards that when you go into a room and you put those cards in your case, like when I put my cards in my case, I want them to be the only cards like it in the room. I don't want somebody to say, "Oh, look, yeah, he's got a George Mikan. Yeah, that dude, and that guy over there, he got George Mikans too, right?" when you walk into a room and you put that card, people are going to come around and be like, "Oh my God, it's George Mikan," because there's not going to be another one in the room, right? So that's kind of, as a dealer, that's kind of, you know, what do I call it? My heavy hitters,
Yeah.
my my case. That's what I want in that case.
Yeah, yeah, I love it, man. I love it. And you think about just the growth that, that we've had in the last, in the last couple of years in this hobby. What do you think is the biggest contributor to your growth in this hobby? Like your growth of knowledge, your growth of inventory. Obviously, money helps, right? But I think we all know people and a lot of people that left the hobby that lost a lot of money by buying the wrong cards,
Mm.
or buying too soon or buying too late or buying the wrong thing, not, you talk about know the show, that's a
Yeah.
quote that you have a lot. So what do you think have been some of the biggest contributors to your just overall growth in the hobby in this space?
I mean, probably number one, and I'm just a person that, I usually, whenever I get involved in something, I'd rather, take all the L's at the beginning, like learn all my lessons up front if I can. And I've had a bunch of L's in the hobby. I've done things and I invested in cards, or
Wait,
I
you
bought
talking
a
about
card.
Mac Jones?
Well, I mean, not even Mac Jones. I mean, just like stuff like, that it could be Mac Jones. It could be just prospecting. It could have been getting into breaks. It could be,
Oh
buying,
man, the breaks.
hoping,
Oh, oy vey, the breaks. You buying into
hoping,
these
hoping that
breaks.
tennis and golf were going to be, up and coming sports, just
Wait, are we
silly
gonna
things
talk
like
about the running back RPAs that you were picking up? Or we're not gonna mention that?
We're not gonna mention that. And we're not
Okay.
gonna mention, and I know I'm probably gonna get yelled at for this, but, I've become a PSA snob, right? So, I mean, all these cards I sent to SGC were great cards. They come back SGC 10s, and somebody says, "Well, the PSA 10 sold for 1,000, and that's SGC. I'll give you 800 for it." Well, wait a minute. It's the same great card in the case. Why wouldn't it be, so that was our lesson to learn too, right? I graded, so, a lot of football through SGC, and SGC is a great grading company for a lot of different cards, but people just don't like to see football in SGC.
Well, yeah, and I think it's not even just football. I think it's super modern. I think that SGC just hasn't really it doesn't have the same appeal to super modern collectors and buyers that vintage does, because when I see a vintage card in an SGC slab, I don't even really think twice about it. I really don't, and that's me being as transparent and honest as I can. I tell you, I'm more apt to think twice about an old PSA slab than I am an SGC slab because I know that with first of all, old PSA slabs, I mean, I just feel like they need to be upgraded. They need to be updated. Like my George Mikan is in an older PSA slab. I definitely want to upgrade the slab. Um, and I know that grading with PSA historically, this is just my belief. I don't know if I'm sure there actually is facts to back it up, but this is just my belief that 10 years ago, if a card was graded a PSA 9, if I were to crack it and resub it today, it would probably come back like a 7 or an 8. It seemed like they were a lot more lenient years ago. And I mean, you hear people say it now. They're like, "Oh my God, it's so hard to get a PSA 10 nowadays. When I sub, it's almost like they're trying to do population control."
Yeah. Yeah. And, I want to say I agree with you on that, but I want to say it depends on what you're sending in. Right?
Mm.
So if you're sending in, and this is just my thought. Say you're sending in 2017 Patrick Mahomes rookie cards, a red yellow or a silver prism or a 2000 Tom Brady, Bowman or Bowman Chrome. I mean, PSA has got to think to themselves when that shows up. It was graded somewhere else and it wasn't a 10, right? And we really need to look this card over a little better versus, a handful of cards that I sent in, this last submission I got back from PSA, all these Pop Century cards. I sent 10 of them, and they all came back PSA 10s, and they're all
Wow.
Pop One, and they're all Pop One. Every single one is a Pop One PSA 10. So here's a card that, maybe they're saying, hey, this card looks great because there's none other like it. It's brand new out of the, we know it's a 2022. So we're going to
Wow.
grade this. We're going to grade this a little differently than we're going to grade a card that may be 3, 4, 5, or 15 or 18 years old that they know was probably graded in another slab at one point or another.
Yeah, and you've mentioned this before, right? And it's one of these lessons that I've learned from, you know, the teacher from Sports Card Lessons, Big Ken, is listen, there's without a doubt that's a card that would be in a holder right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I know for a fact if you see a raw 2017 Silver Prism Mahomes, for
Yeah.
a fact someone graded that at some point.
Yeah.
And this is where vintage is a bit different because we went to Philly last month, right? We went to the Philadelphia show and we were just surrounded by nothing but vintage. And there was probably about a third, I would say about a third of the vintage I saw, maybe a little less than a third, but I would say a third. A third of the vintage was raw and not even in top loaders. They're raw in the
Pennies.
flexible sleeves, not penny
Oh,
sleeves, but like the flexible
yep.
sleeve you send in for grading. So and to me, that doesn't really raise too much of an eyebrow. Now it does to like a slight extent because some of these vintage cards, there was a huge there have been waves in the hobby over the decades of like trimming. Like in the early to mid 80s there was a lot of trimming going on with vintage cards. So if a card's not graded, like you do kind of think like, okay. And that's why you'll see a lot of vintage dealers, they keep rulers with them and they take out their ruler and they literally measure to the centimeter on cards. It's unbelievable to see these guys in action.
Yeah.
And but still though, you figure like a third of Philly had raw vintage, and that didn't deter me one bit from looking at it and wanting to, try to make a deal on some of it, because a lot of vintage dealers, a lot of vintage collectors don't believe in grading. And they've said, I had a conversation with the guy in Philly and he said grading has single-handedly ruined this hobby. I don't have a single graded card on my table. And he was right. He didn't have a single graded card. He said, and you could tell this guy was sincere. He was like in his late 70s to early 80s. This guy had probably been setting up for 50 years. He's like, I don't believe in grading. Grading has ruined this hobby. You'll never, I won't buy a graded card. I don't care if it's given to me. It will not be on my table. I was like,
Mm.
wow. So
Yeah.
so when I see a 2017 Silver Prism Mahomes raw, that raises eyebrows. If I
Yeah.
came across a 64 Mickey Mantle raw, I wouldn't think twice. I'd be like, okay.
Yeah. No, and I think, and as for someone like me who likes to set up a lot, right? I think having the graded cards is, a huge help. I mean, people come up, and even for myself, when I buy cards, and I just talked about buying those XRCs. Now, there's a ton of them that are raw, and I go to shows and I see them raw. But I say to myself, why am I going to bother? Because all I want at the end of the day is a PSA 10. If I'm going to buy
Yeah.
it, I'm going to send it in and grade it. So why don't I just go buy a PSA 10 and just cut out all the other crap in the middle? Right. And then I have, I've been picking up, I have another stack of cards. I've got 65 cards out of PSA right now. And I have another stack of cards I'm building up to hitting that 25 threshold, so I can hit the bulk order. Right. So I could send more in. Um, and I think these are mostly all football cards now, right? So, I mean, one
That's
of the other
awesome.
lanes, one of the other things I've been grading a lot and acquiring a lot is women's soccer, and just some of the top players in women's soccer right now. Um, and I've been excited about that. I'm excited about I watch the soccer as much as I can whenever it's on TV, and yeah, I know who the players are. I know who you know is it some of it's a little bit of it's prospecting, because they're younger players right now, and it's women's soccer, and how high can it go, right? I mean, it's never going to be in a lane, with the NBA or the NFL or Major League Baseball, but it's still going to have a lane of its own.
And yeah, shout out to all the women's sports for sure. Shout out to all the women. Shout out to, you know, shout out to all the minority women, all the players, because African Americans and Hispanics and other minorities, they make up most of the athletes that play all of the sports. They make up most of the pictures of the cards that we collect. So
Mm.
shout out to all of them. And you know with the women's national championship game that just happened, and a little bit of that controversy. I thought it was terrible, terrible what David Portnoy had said. David Portnoy, he is like the founder of Barstool, and I think he just sold the Barstool app, but he um, you know, had some choice words for LSU star Angel Reese. And I mean, I think it was just unbelievable how he like really singled her out for her trash talk on the court, when her white counterpart was literally talking trash the whole time too, and doing just about the same things, and saying the same things. And I mean, personally, I was like, dude, Dave Portnoy, you need to go sit down somewhere, man. Like, sit down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Rob, I played sports my whole life, and I tell this to people all the time. There are things that go on in every sport, right? Me, I played hockey most of my life. So you would trash talk on the ice all the time, but everybody did. And you could drop the gloves and get into a fight. But at the end, you threw your arms around each other and went to the bench. Nobody was reporting from up in a booth or from at home on their couch, right? Saying what they think somebody was saying and what they think they heard or what they think they meant. It's none of their business, right? To
Yeah.
me, it's none of their business. Let these players play. We don't need to bring up things that we think are happening or we think are being said, because this is happening all over that court. You think they're the only two trash talking? You think they're the only two having words on the court? Everybody's having words on the court the whole game. You don't need to point people out like that and try to find some negativity in there, because there's none to find.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. I mean, what's said on the court, I think stays on the court, and what happens on the
Yeah,
court stays on the court.
yeah,
And that's what makes sports so cool, and
yeah.
I remember when you and I first started hanging out, and you had invited me to an event that you were participating in, and it was your I remember the coach put you in as a striker in your competitive badminton league, and I remember the trash talk that I could hear coming from like, you can hear it from the field. I mean, there weren't many people there, so you could hear a church mouse fart, but so there was really not many people in the stands. But I remember like
Yeah.
the coach is like,
And
"Big
what
Ken,
what
you're
what sport was this again? I forget.
competitive badminton." And I can remember he's like, "Big Ken, you're in that striker, get in there." And you just got in, and you put your goggles on, and you talked your trash.
I
Your
had my
Kurt
pink penny.
Rambis
I had
goggles.
I had my pink penny on.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, man, listen, it's this Wolfpack channel, the Wolfpack brand. We have our hobby hangout slash trade night that's going down at National 2023 on Friday night, July 28th, right across from the convention center. Can't wait for that. That's going to be off the hook. We have a live DJ, cash bar, a ton of surprises. So just definitely looking forward to
Get
that.
get
Um,
get there early. That's all
yeah,
I'm telling you right now. Get there early, because
yeah,
it's gonna
yeah.
be the
The
place
place
to
is
be
gonna.
Friday night.
I would imagine before the doors even open, basically, according to what time we're going to be starting, I would imagine the place is going to be at capacity, because it only holds a couple hundred people. So, and
Yeah.
so I would imagine the place is going to be just mobbed. But and we have a full sponsor. We have one full sponsor sponsoring the entire event. We have not announced who the sponsor is yet. We're gonna do a really cool rollout for the big sponsor, so we're looking forward to talking about that. Yeah, man, I'm sports card therapist, Ken sports card lessons. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you guys are familiar with us and our individual content. Shout out to Cousins Collectibles, shout out to Crosstown Cardboard, and Dave. So Ken, any final words before we wrap up?
Oh man, I'm looking forward to Saturday night, or Saturday the show, the Springfield show. I know tables are sold out. I'm looking forward to the panel and the trade night at the
Oh my
Basketball
God.
Hall of
Basketball
Fame.
Hall of Fame,
I get to go up
Saturday
on the
night.
stage. I mean, how many people can say that they've been on the stage at the Basketball Hall of Fame? I'm just pumped
Yeah.
about you know getting up there and doing it. Yeah.
You know what? Like I'm gonna throw you a complete curveball when you're up there. I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna be going to everyone. So what got you into collecting, Joe? What do you like most about the hobby, Jim? And I'm gonna look at Ken and be like, Ken, who was the president of PSA before blah blah blah? And then hand you the mic.
And
before
I'm gonna
before Nat Turner, who ran? Where was Golden founded?
That's all right, kid.
Who is the current
I'll take
president
the
of
mic and just start a
PWCC?
stand-up routine. She'll be like, "Give me the mic back. We're
Uh,
losing people."
you grab the mic, you're like, "What's the deal with sports cards?" Like Jerry
What's
Seinfeld.
the deal?
What's the deal with sports cards? Listen, man, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Gonna have fun hanging out with you this weekend, and again, shout out to the whole Wolfpack, and we have some cool things coming up, not only at National on the content side as well. I know we've been collabing with Dustin Sports Car Dad more and more, so there might be some more collabs coming up there. I'm doing Dinged Corners with him, the show, our little side show that we started. So I think we're probably going to be doing more collabs moving forward, all of us. So you know look out for that, man. We're just trying to create a hobby conglomerate.
Yes, sir. Taking over the world, one podcast at a time.
All right, man. Well, Ken, pleasure. Thank you very much. And with that being said, guys, take care of yourselves and your collection.
And I have to end these with just the regular peace.